We're here at Taupan at the moment. This Corey bustard is definitely stuck around. It's always very nice to see it. And that's again an interesting example. For months you go without seeing a Corey bustard, and then now I think it's been here for about a week. I guess it's got nowhere else to go. There's plenty of food in this open area, water if it needs it. Be interesting to see if it finds a mate. It's a beautiful male in great breeding plumage. Talking about that. There are two. Okay. Indeed, Kathleen, good morning. Good morning to you. Good afternoon this side. Yeah, we zoom in a bit onto this beautiful Corey bustard. Now the males and females are quite similar, excepting for that sort of extended feather necklace that the males have. Also, this one has really bright markings on its wings, on its shoulders. Maybe if the other one comes close by, we might see a slight difference, often in size. Otherwise, they're both more or less the same, unless the male starts to display and he can puff his neck right up. Beautiful zebras and shiny wildebeest in the background. Great afternoon here at Tau. Looks pretty hot if you look at that Corey bustard. It's flapping its throat or its gullah flap. That's how birds keep themselves cool. They open their beaks, they flap their throats or their gullah flaps, and that slowly creates a bit of a breeze, slowly keeping their core temperature down a bit. And certainly not stopping it from a little snack there. Got itself an insect. Probably quite a few around at the moment. This open area here must be good pickings. Thanks, Joe. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, Africam does a great job. Yeah, keeping out the cameras. Really important, not just for us to view them, but it does create a great presence, especially this time when there's not too many people in the lodges, in the reserves. I think Russell had a fair amount of conversation revolving around anti-poaching and essentially looking after these wildlife havens. So yeah, we'll definitely try and keep up the good work. I'm glad you enjoy the show and glad you enjoy watching this incredible African wildlife unfold in front of us. So let's go across to Olifants River. And again, we've had some great elephant viewing over the last couple of days, in fact this whole week. And again, it's a classic example where some days you scan around, have a good look around, and don't see much sign of anything. But lately, elephants have definitely been stars of the show here. We've heard the hippos, haven't seen them recently, but you never know. Rob, the Corey bustards will breed mostly in the beginning of summer, so starting around December, January, going February. But then they'll hopefully have, some of them probably would have already had chicks. And I think they'll be done by latest April, does depend on the season and the rainy season. At the moment, the rainy season looks to carry on for a while, so you might find some youngsters still going into May. But essentially, beginning of summer going into the middle of summer is their time. Just watching this elephant enjoy that acacia tree in absolute peace and comfort. Joe, you're asking the question, is it true that 100,000 elephants have been poached in the last few years? The exact number, I'm not too sure. But if you took Africa as a whole, I'm talking about Central Africa and the Congo, East Africa coming down south, there's no doubt that they are under heavy pressure. Again, like I say, the exact numbers, I'm not too sure, and those numbers do change a lot. But there's no doubt that they're definitely getting more and more endangered. And areas like these are having to spend a lot more time and effort on protecting them. So AFRICAM is quite involved with a group in this particular area. You might have heard of the Black Mambas. It's a all-female anti-poaching unit initiative that's been really successful. And we put a lot of time and effort into making sure that they can still function. And lots of other reserves, Tembe on the far eastern side of the country, they also have dedicated departments that are becoming very pressurized to look after all the wildlife, not just elephants. So there's no doubt that there's a fair amount of pressure and increasing pressure that we're all keeping our eye on as best as possible. But like I say, for the time being in these beautiful areas here, they're quite relaxed and live in little corners of paradise. So that young bull walked around that thicket. I think might have been Monday we saw a bull walk into that same area and then popped out quite far off to the right. I suspect there's a trail, an elephant path on that side. Let's just wait and see if it comes out there. Let's also keep a good lookout at this time of day after these hot days. Maybe there'll be a pattern like yesterday. A beautiful big herd of elephants came right down to the river's edge. I'm not sure if they crossed the river. I don't know if anyone carried on watching. There's an elephant. I don't know if it's the same one. This one's come from the right. So we might find today. Yeah, there's two. You might find that we have a similar pattern. Let's watch these two meet up with each other. Welcome, Brittany. Hi, Margaret. Great to have you on the show again. I think, yeah, you were watching yesterday, Margaret. We had a good show with these elephants arriving. I'm always waiting for them to cross over the river. It is quite incredible. It's a beautiful bull on the right-hand side there. He doesn't have very long tusks, but quite widely spread. You see that even spread. If you look at his body, he's not that old. He's maybe in his mid-30s or maybe early 30s, just coming into his prime. I suspect by the time he gets to his 40s, he's going to be quite a dominant bull. So the males, or should we say both male and females, have tusks, and the tusks are used for all sorts of things. Obviously, in a female's case, they will use them for protecting their offspring, but they'll all use them for digging up soil to get to roots, loosening soil to start digging for water. That's a great shot. He's just peering. It's almost like he's in a hole. yeah, they'll use the tusks to chisel away at bark, but the bulls will also use them to fight. And if I look at this bull who's got short, thick tusks, those are often better choices of weapons, if you like, as opposed to long and thin tusks. And the long and thin tusks look quite scary and sometimes do put other elephants off of physical combat. But if they do get a confrontation where they'll need to fight, they often break off. And we do see that on a regular basis, where you see elephants have broken off tusks, or sometimes both of them. But I reckon a bull like this, who's got relatively thick tusks, and I suspect they'll stay short, he could be quite a successful fighter and therefore successful breeder. But for the time being, there's no fighting in sight. Just feeding. And again, after all these incredible rains, that nice thick bush, I suspect that acacia leaf tastes delicious. So they'll prefer to go for the leaves as a whole. They ideally don't want to eat too many of the woody branches. Those will wear their teeth down faster and they're not quite as sweet. But if they can get the edges and just pull off a lot of leaves, that's really good eating. And some of you might know that acacias have lots of, or characteristically, lots of big thorns on them. And obviously the skin of the elephant is thick. It is, however, quite sensitive. And what elephants typically do is, if you can imagine a branch that has lots of thorns, but they kind of point towards either the sky or towards the end of the branch. And then what they do is they take their trunk and take it to the base of the branch, wrap it around tightly, and pull towards the end of the branch, pulling off the leaves and flattening the thorns, if that makes sense. So there's a definite technique that, in this case, elephants use to feed on acacia leaves without getting cut and stabbed. And giraffe do something similar. Kudus and other smaller antelopes with smaller mouths will pick off individual leaves quite skillfully, and that's how they deal with the thorns. That's a classic photo right there through that arched branch. A perfect view of this beautiful bull on the edge of the Olifants River. Notice as he walks away from us how much bigger his front feet are to his back feet. You see his front feet are very large and round. His back feet are quite a lot smaller and almost oval. It's one of the ways you track an elephant and work out the direction that it's going, is if the bigger foot is in front of the smaller foot, you know that's the direction it's going. But there's another perfect example. Look how that foot splays open, and essentially the front foot needs to be stronger. It needs to carry the shoulders, the head, the tusks, the trunk. Whereas the back feet, although that backside looks pretty large, it's not as heavy as the front side. Yesterday, when we started to see elephants here at Olifants, it was also the bulls that we saw first. It's not always the case, but I'm wondering whether the herd will follow a bit later. It's not an unusual pattern. It doesn't have to happen every time, but often the bulls are the front runners to get into an area. So let's see what happens and see if any herds arrive a bit later. Suku, we're going to check whether we can put up the volume. Let us know how I'm sounding now. So let's cross over to Nkoropan quickly while that elephant's gone off into the thicket. We'll keep an eye on that. As usual, we'll come backwards and forwards wherever there's something going on. It's not quite an elephant here at Nkoro, but it's a wonderful sighting of impalas. You know, these days we get to see them often in the open areas, with not so much closer to the waterhole. And here there's a lovely big herd. Again, sometimes I feel like they're such a common antelope, we see them pretty much anywhere. And therefore we end up not giving them too much attention. I find them very beautiful animals, especially at this time of year where they're well fed, they're clean after the rain. And never forget that these are the animals that often help us find the big stuff. So if all those eyes and ears, if they spot or smell or hear a leopard or lion or any predator, they often give off a very accurate alarm. Sometimes birds can alarm at snakes or raptors, but if the alarm comes from impalas or kudus, it's always a good idea to have a good look around. Yeah, there definitely are some big catfish, Brittany, in this pan. I don't know if you remember seeing those ones coming out of the water on the right of the pan. I haven't seen too much movement lately, but in a lot of these water holes, catfish are, are very dominant. And I think we saw them at Tembe last week during a heavy downpour, actually moving out of one waterhole going into the next. And we discussed the concept that they really are hardcore survivors. I've taken some walking safaris through some dry parts of northern Botswana, and where there's just a little mud wallow left in the middle of the Mapani woodland. And there you find a catfish dried up in the mud, still alive, just hoping they make it to the rainy season, unless they get eaten by African fish eagles or leopards or other predators. They actually do manage to survive an incredible amount of time in very little water. But that's for those kind of seasons. At the moment, they're thriving in these wonderful water holes. I think there's also quite a lot of groundwater lying amongst the grass here. So yeah, they can get around. Looks to be a nice bit of breeze here at Nkora, keeping the animals nice and cool. This is a wonderful time of day as the sun starts to set. It's not so fierce. Animals come out of the woodworks, feed, drink. Because the summer days here are really, really warm. I think maybe towards the end of next month, things might start to cool off a little. The oxpeckers arrived, 2 of them at least. Well, they've all jumped onto the one impala for now. That one's trying to chase them off. So I was talking a bit about the fact that I've been looking at some highlight videos from a couple of months ago, so at the end of the dry season. And so there were some really interesting things, but it's also quite interesting to note the difference in the environment. So this clip here that I'd like to share with you is a highlight video while those impalas are enjoying their nibble. But here's a great video of 2 honey badgers that came down to Nkoropan. So we've just had a look at Nkoropan. And one's down at the water already, having a good drink. Now these animals, we haven't seen them for a long time. And I think they're predominantly better viewing for these smaller things in the winter months when it's dry, is then animals need to come to the water holes. The bush is thinner. It's so lovely to see 2 of them. It also does just showcase all the different things we get to see on these cameras at different times of the year. So I don't know if anyone has ever seen a honey badger before. I'm sure you might have read or seen some videos. There's some quite funny videos about honey badgers and how hardcore they are. And they don't look it right here, but I can tell you one thing. They are as hardcore as their name, they live up to their name, should put it that way. At the moment, they're just foraging and they'll scratch all sorts of things out of the ground. They'll go for ground beetles, they'll go for spiders, they'll dig scorpions out the ground. They're really quite famous for taking on huge snakes. And there's some really interesting footage out there of them holding their own against lions and other big predators. Just look at that walk. It's a walk of attitude for sure. So I'm always looking out for honey badgers. That actually happens to be my favorite animals. I know we've been talking about favorite animals, but whenever I see a honey badger, firstly, they make me laugh. And secondly, I just love watching them. They're highly entertaining. Beautiful animal, wonderful sighting. So that was a while ago at Nkora. Of course, it was at night, so it's tricky to see the difference in terms of the bush. But I'll show you some more videos later on in the show where we'll compare how it looks in winter to what it looks like right now. This is a wonderful view right underneath the camera. So this male on the left is about 2 years of age. So when you see the horns that are just pointing towards each other like that, they're roughly 2 years of age. In comparison to the one on the left where they've they've split apart and then slowly coming back at the top. So I'd put that one at about 3 or 4. He's coming into his prime, that one on the left. So I reckon this May he might be a contender. So the impalas are one of the few antelope to have a particular rut. And it'll start in May, going into June, maybe going into July, that the males will have big battles on their hands, essentially battling for breeding rights. Okay, we've quickly shot across to Taupan, where there's some more impalas. Let's see if we can see any males in this group and age them. Can only really see the females for now. Oh, a springbok. It's one we haven't seen for a while at Tau. It's quite interesting. Tau is one of the only places where we've got cameras where we can see springbok. So it's a beautiful animal to see. Yeah, we don't see big herds at this waterhole. They do like dry environments. They thrive in dry environments. In fact, they don't like the competition that they get from the bigger herds of impala. But again, at this time of year where it's really, lots of food, really thick, the impala don't mind to have one springbok strolling around. Plenty of food to go about. Brittany, I'm glad you're enjoying this new section to the whole of Africam, and thanks so much for viewing Africam over so many years. Yeah, it is. It's nice to engage with people that enjoy these sort of things of similar interests. Because it truly is quite a wonderful experience if you can't actually get yourself into these environments. Watching these cameras is very satisfying. You learn a lot. It does give us our safari fix for the day. Lovely zebra. Oh, having a yawn on the move. One thing I really enjoy about Taucam is how things just keep coming and going, various levels of movement, but there's always something going on. Okay, so while these zebras and springbok and impala are enjoying this beautiful afternoon, I just want to go across to another highlight from the winter months, this time from Naledi Dam. And a beautiful leopard came down for a drink. And again, it's just a wonderful example of how relaxed these animals are and how we can view them without disturbing them. Just have a listen to it drinking. very still night, which often happens in the winter months, no wind. You can really hear that leopard lapping the water. And what's quite interesting is those of you that have cats, um, you'll know that they've got really hairy tongues, and leopards are exactly the same, except about 10 times bigger. So the whole tongue of that leopard has got little white hairs that point backward into the mouth. So the reason for that is when leopards catch their prey, they actually shave the hair off before they bite into the skin. But it also helps very much when it comes to drinking. You see, they don't slurp the water, they're using their tongue to lap at the water, and that those hairs help catch a fair amount of water every time it laps the water up. You can see that reflective layer in the eye, the reflective tapetum. Essentially, it's a reflective layer at the back of the eye that basically sends the light that comes through the eye, catches it, and reflects back, allowing the light to spend more time in the eye for the light receptors to give it the nocturnal vision that it has. It's a really cool bird call. It's a pearl spotted owlet. For those of you that like birds, have a look in a bird book or on a birding app. They're really puny little owls. They're not much bigger than a dove. Beautiful colors and a classic call. While this leopard is having a drink, shaking off the mud on its feet. And let's just watch it how it moves off. Beautiful animal. Okay, so that was a leopard at Naledi. And here's another clip. And this really is a special clip because it's a lioness this time that came down for a drink. This was in November. Okay, so this is the right at the end of the dry season. And after this clip, we'll go to Naledi Dam live to show you the difference. And it's not that long ago, 3-4 months ago. So beautiful lioness coming down for a drink. You can also hear her lapping quite clearly. You can also see how she's got a bit of red on her face. There's a bit of a red coloration. She's come from a kill, so that's a bit of blood that she hasn't had time to clean off yet. But I'm sure once she's done drinking, she'll spend some time cleaning herself like all cats do. Just look at that face. Beautiful. You can see her pupils are quite small, obviously because it's during the day. But if it was at night, they'd be wide open and we'd see that same reflection, very strong reflection shining back at us. Again, one of their biggest attributes is the ability to see well at night. But in the winter months when it's cooler, it's not unusual at all to see both leopards and lions moving around predominantly in the morning and late afternoon, essentially the cooler hours. Let's just enjoy the last bit of this lioness having a drink. And just remember what this environment looks like. The dry grass, it's flat on the ground, it's all dried and dead. Listen to her calling as well. That's interesting. Okay, so a lot of our cameras have just gone down. That's fine. Well, I'm sure they'll pop back up again. It does happen from time to time. We can, I guess, compare the greenery as well of Tembe. So now we're back on live camera. I know we're jumping backwards and forwards here, but just have a look how green and lush this is. When the lady comes back up, we'll cross across there because it is quite fascinating. They look like two different worlds. But here we're at Tembe with a beautiful Inyala and quite a tropical scene. Very, very green indeed. It's wonderful to see a lot of you that have known Africam for a while, and I'm glad to see you appreciate, being part of, I guess, the family. And you can join in, have a look, ask questions. I really enjoy it. So thanks again for joining us on these shows. It is always very nice to engage with all of you around the world. So it looks like Naledi's back up and running. So this is live. Where that lioness just drank from is across the waterhole. You can see that water plant has taken over. So as it gets hot, a lot of these water plants grow pretty rapidly. But just look at that tall grass, the green bushes. It's quite a different place. And that was only 3.5 months ago. So the change is quite dramatic. So it's always good to refer back to different times and see how things change. While we're here, we're just going to have a quick look around. I know there was a bit of elephant activity here a bit earlier. Hi Heather, welcome to the show. It's a pretty cool question. Which one is, did you say which one is more rare to catch on the camera, leopard or lioness? Well, I would say leopards in general are rarer to see. It doesn't really matter whether you're on the camera, on a game drive or in a walk. Lions are not common, but if we had to compare the two, my guess would be leopard. But one really good thing about the cameras and leopard viewing is that because leopards are typically really shy, if you came along there with a vehicle, they would hear you and disappear pretty quickly. Whereas with these cameras, we obviously have no impact whatsoever. Talking about vehicles, there's some folks going on a game drive. Hope they have a wonderful afternoon. Maybe they'll be lucky and catch a leopard. We'll have to send them a message if we see one at one of the cameras. But yeah, so leopards are really shy. Even those leopards that are more relaxed, they sometimes sneak off and they're really hard to see. I remember on many occasions tracking leopards, so having fresh tracks in the middle of the road, and then you lose the track, so the animals walked off. It's obviously heard us coming. And what I often used to do is drive off and then turn around and slowly drive back, because I know that leopards like to just move off the road and then come back once you're gone. And 8 out of 10 times they would have done that. We would have seen their tracks on top of our vehicle tracks, but no sign of the leopard. It used to drive me nuts. But when you do find them, really rewarding. And of course, when we do see them on the cameras, it's very rewarding as well. Don't know if you can see those baboons. We've moved across to the Olifants River Cam. And there are our fig tree troop. I think I'm going to call them that. They haven't been around for a while. But we often do see them in the afternoon around the fig trees. Last minute feeding, grooming, and then they'll climb up into the trees, and that's where they'll sleep for the night. Margaret, you asking a question about termite mounds. I'm not sure exactly which one you're referring to in terms of its size and how long it takes to get that big. But the general... Oh, what is in the water there? Is there the elephant in the water? Yes, next to the rocks. There's two elephants. Don't know if you can see them. The camera's panning to the right. There's a bit of a delay in communication, but the camera's going to go back. There's what looks like two elephants. Maybe it's the two elephant bulls we saw earlier. The camera will go back there. In the meantime, termite mounds. So termite mounds, generally speaking, take about a year to get the size of a football. That's going to vary from soil type to soil type. But generally speaking, it's about a year to get the size of a football. Termite mounds can last up to 40 years as long as the queen is alive. There we go, look at that. Love watching elephants playing in the water. So I'll just finish up with the termite mounds and then we'll watch these ellies. So yeah, the termite mounds can have one colony going for up to 40 years. And every now and then you'll find a big mound that has lost its colony or there's no termites there, and sometimes they get taken over by aardvarks or warthogs come in and burrow in there. Mongoose will go into the holes. But it's not unusual for new generations, in other words, those flying ants or the alanates that often take off after the rains, they might find an old mound and carry on. And that's when you get those huge mounds that have had 2 or 3 generations move through them. Brittany, that's exactly what it is. A big fat pool party when elephants get going in the water. I don't know if you saw some of the clips over last week where they were crossing the river, but in some points they were rolling on their sides and just floating down. And really just enjoying it. They're slowly coming closer towards us. Let's spend a bit more time watching them. And while we were watching the baboons, I'm not sure what it was, but there was something falling in the water. I'm just wondering if some of those figs in the fig trees were ripe. I don't think the elephants, well, in this case, they're not feeding on anything on the ground, but he's going to pull up that root. Yeah, look how he's using his tusk and his trunk at the same time to get to that root. Classic. So what they like when it comes to roots is not so much the whole. You see how he's just got the little edges, and he doesn't want to eat that big root. He wants to roll it around between his molars and essentially peel off the outer layer, the cambium layer, or the soft bark layer when it comes to roots, and that's what he wants to feed on. I don't know if any of you have ever pulled a carrot straight out the ground and knocked off the soil and tasted it. And it's often a really juicy carrot but has a particular earthy flavor. And that's what roots taste like. And yes, I have eaten roots. Sometimes it's quite interesting to watch elephants or watch animals to see what they're feeding on. And then sometimes if it looks good, like wild fruit, it's quite nice to taste and see what they must be enjoying. Or I don't know if any of you have ever eaten a freshly pulled grass blade. You don't need to eat a whole lot of it, but it is quite sweet. So look at that elephant. He's loving that root. He's managed to break it right in half. And now he's getting it deep into his mouth. The molars are quite far at the back. And he's going to crush that root and get all the juice out. Another comparison is sugarcane. I don't know if any one of you have ever eaten sugarcane, but that's how you eat sugarcane. You peel off the hard layer and then you crush the soft inner layer, and the juice that comes out is absolutely delicious. Look at that root, he's mangled it. So another topic that often people are interested in, and we often say that elephants are so destructive. And I look at it in a different way. And for me, this is what elephants do. They eat a lot. They need to get in 140, in some cases up to 160 kgs of food every day to sustain that big body. Nature very rarely makes mistakes. If you put lots of elephants in a small space, they definitely will eat themselves and everybody else out of house and home, because that's what they do. But in a big enough space, elephants are really important. So they push over trees and opening up the ground there where he's pulling that root out. It's not going to kill the fig tree, but it's certainly going to aerate the soil. Those fig fruits that are falling off the trees will fall into those cracks in the ground, making it much easier for them to take seed. When elephants push trees over or break branches off, they enable other animals to get to leaves and flowers and fruits that they wouldn't have been able to reach otherwise, and therefore more animals eating the fruits, leaves, flowers, the more that seed can spread. Elephants also, because they feed on so many different things, they get lots of different seeds into their system, They don't have any territories. They cover huge home ranges, and as they move, they drop and disperse seeds all over the place, essentially making an environment more diverse than doing damage, if that makes sense. So whenever I hear people saying that they're so destructive, I try and explain my point of view and hope that it makes sense. And I tell you what, these two elephants are loving those roots that are exposed. I suspect the floodwaters that came down exposed those shallow roots, and now the elephants are loving them. I wonder if that's why we've been seeing more elephant activity recently along the river's banks. Obviously, there's lots of food to be had in general, but often when certain trees fruit or certain areas bloom, animals get attracted to that space for the change in diet. So this is the first time we've seen elephants feeding on the roots. But I wonder if that's not one of the reasons why they're spending more time along the banks of the river. Whatever it is, these two have found a gold mine. It's a perfect place to be. These elephants can drink, eat, and throw mud on their backs at the same time. Talking about a pool party. It's perfect. Surprised not more joining them. Yeah, Marcel, your question there, and thanks, Brittany, for answering where the cameras are. But yeah, just to sort of clarify the concept, if you're new to Africam, so we've got cameras all over parts of northern South Africa. So this camera that we're looking at right now is on the Olifants River, and it's running live. The cameras run live 24/7. And they pick up the sound. We have incredible infrared abilities, so the nighttime viewing is really good. And I'm watching these cameras. I'm based in Cape Town at the moment until borders and planes start moving. Then I move around and go to various parts in Africa. But that's how Africam is working at the moment. And these shows, we have 2 shows twice a day. Otherwise, the cameras just keep rolling. You can go to the Africam website where you'll get a full description and you can choose which camera to watch them all at the same time. It's quite an incredible experience. Let us know what you think. So while these elephants are moving off, I just want to show you one more clip, and let's have a listen to the sound as well. This was a lioness at Tembe. We'll start that one again. I really want you to hear. We'll get it set up here. That's what happens when you put a bushman into a digital environment. We'll get there. Here we go. Have a listen to this. That was a pretty quick clip, but a wonderful clip of lioness roaring at Tembe. And we're just going to have one more look across here at Tau. There doesn't seem to be too much happening here. Today it's quite interesting. Earlier we had zebras and springbuck, and they seem to have moved off. I just want to go back to olifants one more time. It's so nice watching those two elephants that come down. Sounds like a Swanson spur file, an afternoon call. I wonder if these elephants are thinking about crossing over. Come on, you can do it. We've come to the end of the show, but I'm happy to stick around. Oh, listen to that. I think that spur file's sitting right on top of the mic. I just want to watch a little bit longer just to see if that one on the left or closest to us looks like it wants to cross over. That would be an extra special sight. There we go. They might just go for a swim, but let's see what happens. It doesn't look like they are wanting to cross just yet. Or maybe just the way that bull is looking across this way, he's got his trunk up. Maybe he's just looking for a better spot to cross. while we're waiting, Patricia, I'm not sure all of the names of where the names come from, but the Olifants River, for example, Olifant is because of the elephants. It's Afrikaans for elephant, and that's why it's always quite nice to see them right here at the Olifants River. Wow, sorry, just a beautiful view. I'll carry on. Let's just watch them and listen to them. Absolutely loving that stream. Okay. Yeah, you could sit and watch them all afternoon. So Tembe Cam comes from the Tembe National Park, and that comes from the surname of the chief of the area, King Tembe. Tau is line in Setswana, that's Tau Pan. Kwamaritani, I'm not sure what Kwamaritani means, but Kwapan comes from a lodge called Kwamaritani, which is in the Pilanesberg Game Reserve. And the rest we'll have to find out. We'll let you know in the next show. Folks, I can only say if you have the time, just keep watching this beautiful scene here late afternoon. Maybe they will cross, maybe they won't, but it's pretty special either way. Thanks so much for being with us this afternoon. It's been a great hour. I think we've again seen some incredible things. Keep watching the cameras, those of you that are on Africam Premium. This is a great opportunity for a snapshot. Keep shooting away. And I look forward to catching up with you tomorrow. Have a great day further, folks.